It gives me great pleasure to introduce this next guy. I have not known him in a very long period of time. We had some phone conversations, and he came highly recommended. His name is Jonathan McConnell. Many of you may have heard about him. He's here. He's here to talk about gun rights and freedom, things we care about. And Jonathan McConnell is a Christian conservative businessman and former captain in the Marine Corps, a Birmingham resident, and he grew up in Mobile, Alabama. Wouldn't it be nice to have a military guy running for POTUS? Wow, would that be great or what? After college, Jonathan chose to serve his country and joined the United States Marine Corps. Served as an infantry officer in the Marines, earning multiple commendations for his actions and leadership during 2 deployments to Iraq. After returning from Iraq, Jonathan started law school at the University of Alabama. I don't know why anybody want to do that, but while finishing his first year of law school, in response to the hijacking, and I can't pronounce this word, but it's a ship from Alabama, okay? In response to the hijacking of the Massac, how you say that, John? Marisic. They teach you how to do that in law school? Say that? Okay. Tell me how to read. Okay. Tell me how to read. Maybe I need to go to law school. Anyway, this ship was hijacked by Somalia pirates. Many of y'all remember that. Jonathan founded Meridian US. It's a global maritime security company. And under Jonathan's leadership, Meridian has grown and currently employs more than 50 people. Additionally, Captain McConnell is an NRA licensed firearms instructor and a Class 3 federal firearms license dealer, and a member of the American Bar Associations and several security associations. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Jonathan McConnell.
Thank you so much for having me. I will say law school was absolutely horrible. There were no pictures in the books at all, so I would not recommend it for anybody. And I realized that once you all heard that I was a lawyer, there was a slight hiss in the room. And I hope that I can give you at least make it up for myself a little bit, being a Marine, but also too being a Class 3 federal firearms license dealer. You know, I'd like to talk to you about some of my experiences and my experiences in dealing with and how they relate to what the environment is today. You know, our Second Amendment rights are under attack. They're under attack every single day because we have people in government that are not standing up for our rights, and for some odd reason, we seem to be on the defensive too much. You know, there are certain presidential candidates out there that are popular because they don't back down. Because every single time, well, the problems with Republicans is that when they go up there and they start taking a stand on something, then they'll back down as soon as they're challenged. The Second Amendment is not an option. It's a right. One thing I want to talk about is the people who've served our country really quick. If you've served our country, will you stand up so we can recognize you and thank you? Wow. Thank you so much. You know, I struggle with this. Our company, we defend ships off the coast of Somalia. I hire primarily former Marines and some Army Special Forces soldiers that work with us. But it's amazing the access to care that these guys do not have. These gentlemen, these people who serve their country. You know, what the biggest struggle that I have with all this is a lot of them, either they can't get care from the VA and the others don't want it. And the reason being is they're afraid that if they get diagnosed with PTSD, which many of us had it, then all of a sudden, they're afraid that their gun rights are going to be taken away. The fact that these men and women took up arms to fight for our country, and now they're thinking that their government is going to take away their fundamental right is wrong. What some of our Marines have put up with, some of our service members have put up with, is second to none. They've laid it all on the line. They've written a check, a blank check to our U.S. government with the balance being their lives. And our enemy cashes that in day after day. And how do we thank them? I remember this war is something that's a different war than most. The Vietnam War, my hat goes off to every one of these gentlemen here that fought in the Vietnam War. And I will say welcome back to our World War II veterans. It is a different type war, and our forgotten war, our Korean War. It was incredible. But the one thing I've seen about the veterans that are out there, and a lot of them that have worked with me, you know, it's a different war. Because there's a lot of times when you're completely isolated by yourself. And to me, these guys are heroes. We had a situation where in November of 2005 in Iraq, where I had a Marine, there was a Marine that was on post. His name was Lance Corporal James Brown, and he wasn't responding on post. As the COC came over the watch and was calling for the radio checks, wondering why Post 1 wasn't checking in, Post 2 finally came over and said, COC, this is Post 2. Post 1's probably out of battery. So the COC ran to that post, ran up a new battery, only to find Lance Corporal James Brown dead, laying in a pool of his own, sandy pool of his own blood, where he kicked up the sand in his last moments of breath because he'd been shot just above the armor, in the plate right here, or just above the armored plate, just as 8 other Marines from my battalion had been hit that year, or that deployment. So the Marines, of course, immediately start responding, and Corporal Chad Nickerson, Lance Corporal Brown's team leader, was in charge of taking that position, defending that post, getting back on the rifle, and making sure that the rest of the Marines were safe in his sector of fire. I tell that story because I want you to think about that moment for a second. Corporal Nickerson had to stand in that exact same spot where in the bloody sand of his Marine, a Marine from his team. Think about the loneliness and the anguish of that moment. Now, when people talk about millennials, and they talk about this younger generation not being good for anything, I tell them about that story. Like, how many people do you know had the mental fortitude in that moment? And what's going on in that Marine's mind? Because that sniper could still be sitting right there, aimed in at that exact same spot where he knew he could be in the sights of that sniper still then. Do you think he's going to have problems when he comes home? Is it a problem, or is it just something that he's got to work through? But our VA is failing us because we don't have access to health care. And also, too, we're failing ourselves because of the stigma that goes with PTSD. And the stigma that goes along with it as well, that he may lose his rights. And that is unacceptable. We've got to stand up for our veterans, but we've also got to stand up for our rights. Right now, the Second Amendment is under attack like I've never seen it before in my life. We have gun control, we have gun-free zones, which to me are unacceptable. It's like a license to kill zone, because at that point, you're unarming people and making them easy targets. I would not love, but what if someone with a shooter came in here right now? Man, it would be amazing. I would probably duck and let the fire blossom. Y'all take care of it, because at that point, there'd be so many people responding. But I do not feel safer anywhere else in this state than I do right here, right now, because everybody's carrying. But the problem that we have is an inactive Congress. An inactive Congress that has not held our president in check. You know, our president signs these executive orders, which really didn't do a whole lot, and they did infringe on some things, but it's because the Congress is not putting him in check. You know, I sometimes wonder if our president, if our senators or our Congress has ever even read the Constitution and understand that it's not up for negotiation. This is not something that the president gets to write executive orders on and decide what he is and is not going to enforce. We've got to hold them accountable, and that's not happening. You know, I think that we reward bad behavior as a federal government, whether it's through illegal immigration, whether it's through our welfare system, you know, whether it's through our healthcare system. We reward people who don't have healthcare, who don't feed themselves. We give them government benefits. But why are we rewarding bad behavior as well with our gun laws? By infringing the rights of the law-abiding citizens, every single person in this room is a law-abiding citizen. But we're infringing your rights because of the bad behavior of others. AL.com had an article yesterday that talked about a Facebook transaction gone wrong, where someone bought a pistol, and the deal went bad, and the deal went through on Facebook. As a lawyer and as an FFL, every time someone gets shot, I go through and do the research. And I look, how did they get their weapon? Was it a legal way of getting their weapon? Overwhelming majority of the time, it's not. We're allowing politicians, we're allowing liberals to infringe on our Second Amendment rights because we're not standing up to them and saying, show me a way that someone did a mass killing but did it by illegally acquiring a weapon. In almost every circumstance, they got it illegally. If our government had the guts, they would enforce the laws that are currently in place. But I have yet to find anything that the federal government's good at besides taxing. They're a failure. They can't take care of our veterans. They certainly can't do education, right? And I don't know why they're in the minds of our children, but they can't enforce the gun laws that are in place. We can't even stop people from coming in here illegally. At what point do we say common sense is not a common virtue in Washington, D.C.? So I come here and I ask you, I want you to hold our government accountable. I can promise you that every single gun law that goes out there, if anything, it's going to reinforce the Second Amendment. It will not infringe on it. We need you to be loud. We need you to invite people to join BamaCarry. We need to grow this organization because this is what stands up for something that's not even negotiable. But you have to be passionate, and you have to get other people involved. The Second Amendment, if they take our rights on the Second Amendment, what are they going to take next? That's what scares me the most. When people ask, what are you doing? When they ask what we were doing in Iraq, a lot of times they say, I'm doing this not because I hate what's in front of me, it's because I love what's behind me. My motivating factor are the 4 nieces in my life that I would die for. And I'd imagine that all of you feel the exact same way. I'm not doing this because I hate liberals. Well, okay, I do hate liberals. Sorry. I'm doing this because I love what's behind me. I love my nieces. And I believe in this American dream. That American dream is to leave a legacy for our kids that's better off than what we had it. And are we doing that right now? Absolutely not. We must protect our Second Amendment rights. We must reduce our government. And we must protect our future. I appreciate y'all having me. If y'all ever need anything in regards to a gun issue, I was telling Eddie this a few minutes ago, you are welcome to use my law license because I promise you, I'm a horrible lawyer. I can tell you how to import and export guns all day, but the one thing I will do, if you ever have a legal issue with a gun where someone infringes on your rights, I will never charge you. I will do that for free because we've got to have people that stand up to these people. Thank you so much, and God bless.